everybody. Namaste, Aditi ma'am. Namaste, Itu, and Namaste, Nishan. So we are live. Today is our third session in the Experience series. As you know, we started with the first session on Monday this week, which was with our Rex Karmavir Global Fellows, and the second one was on Wednesday, which was the 1st of July, with our Youth Fellows. And this is the third session, which is with educators and teachers. And you are the first to be on this series, which is the Learning Experience series. Aditi ji, welcome to the Learning Experience series and glad to have you with us. Our host for the session is Itu Chopra, who's our co-founder for the Rex Karmavir Global Fellowship and the Rex Karmavir Youth Fellowship and all the other initiatives along with Nishant. Nishant and I are now going to become flies on the wall and disappear from the screen and hand you over to Itu Chopra, who's then going to take this forward with you. Yes,
Thank you.
over to you, Itu. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Nishant.
Thank you.
Namaste once again, Aditi ji.
Namaste, too. Lovely to be
So good to
here.
have you. And let's just dive into the discussions and let people know what is it that we are going to bring as a learning experience for all of us today. And we're calling this as a learning experience for our educators fraternity and all the educators that we brought in on the month of April 2019 when we first launched our Education Change Champion Fellowship and Awards, and we are so happy to have you with us. So the first question, which I'm sure you've been asked upteen times, is what was the reason that you wanted to become a teacher, and what is it about teaching that you love, and is it this junoon and shiddat and devotion? These are my words that I use as a teacher. And was it all this, and what was it behind taking this noble profession of a teacher?
So, Itu, you've taken me back to a childhood memory. I think I've always wanted to be a teacher. I think that every child, when they're growing up, they like to pick up the red pen and put those tick marks, and. Um, but for me, I think it went a little bit beyond that. My dad was in the army, and we used to travel from one place to the other. And for a while, the only people I had to play with till you made friends were the people who lived, as helpers in the quarters at the back, and my own brothers. So in the evening, when the evening started, I would find it the easiest thing to go into the guest room, and one of the door panes became my blackboard, or my brown board rather, and I had a chalk, and everybody was taught. And it could obviously they were taught what I knew. I mean, as an 8-year-old, what else would I know except a few words or maybe a few drawings? But for me, that was a great leveler. From a 3-year-old to a 6-year-old, they were taught the same things, and for some reason, I found that very enriching. So these are my early memories. Whenever there was a play acting, I would want to be the teacher. When we had to dress up, I wanted to be a teacher. When I grew up, the first time I was given a voice to my dream was in my school, when the principal walked in, and one of those casual interactions. He says, "What do you want to be?" So he was asking everybody. So everyone said the right thing, engineer, doctor, lawyer. And there I got up and I said, "I want to be a teacher." So my friends also turned back and looked at me, "Ki, acha, really? I mean, we didn't know this one." So my principal just patted me on the head. He said, "Ki, khadi pehenna padega." So I didn't know what it meant at that time. As a 12, 13-year-old, these things don't really make much sense to you. So I just answered back. I told him, I said, "Sir, but I like khadi." And that was that. Probably he was wanting to tell me that you have to live a very simple life, or that, it's a profession which may not give you enough money. So you will end up wearing very simple clothes. I don't know what his message was. And I didn't think much about it. But that dream that had taken birth in my brain just stayed. And I think what made me become a teacher was that I've had the most amazingly supportive parents. They have never forced me. I was the firstborn. They didn't force me to do a certain course or to do certain subjects or live their dream of what they want to be or they want me to be or what they could not be. I was just left to myself. With just one rider, do well. Take a decision, Think about it. We are here to support you, but do well. I also come from a family where my cousins and all, they all went on to become bankers and, filmmakers and very, very well-known professions, so to say, advertisers and all. And but I was never told, ki, dekho, what are they doing? And when I became a teacher, I think I cannot compensate for the joy that gave me with any amount of money. So it was a dream, like I said, as a child. Um, Nothing could dissuade me. I always had a reason why I want to be a teacher. I would always have some pat reply ready for friends or cousins or peers or whoever said something. Um, and then, like I said, my parents and my husband, they've always been supportive. I mean, whichever way your family can support you by not putting you down or not by not telling you that of course you don't get the same salary as somebody who works in a bank or in a law firm or whatever. But if your family doesn't mention it, it ceases to be important for you. So I guess that was the journey, that was the beginning. And what kept me here was the sheer joy I got out of teaching the children and the kind of love they reciprocated. That
True.
kept me going always, because again, you cannot quantify love and affection and respect with money. So when you go out somewhere, you meet your students, you talk with them. Um, and again, I think this is something which our generation grew up with, that money is not all important. Of course, it's important. You have to keep your body and soul together. But can money um overtake happiness, contentment, giving, service? It doesn't. So that dream sort of took shape and then became larger and larger and larger, and here I am.
Yeah, I think your story rings a lot of bell with me as well. And but the restless me that I am, I did quit teaching, but it kept coming back to me in different forms, even in the social development sector and all of that. And
Right.
the love that you talk about, the kind of love that you get, and I say that investment that you do gives you dividends all your life, no matter where you go as a teacher. Also, a profession that keeps you young. And I remember
Absolutely.
that I would love wearing a sari and writing on the cupboards all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's so beautiful, and I think that that love and devotion, kind of which you get from the students, keeps you going and helps you to move forward. And that's been the case with you, and we've seen the kind of love that you garnered from everyone around you. So
Thank you. I'm blessed.
yeah, tell me one thing, that the education system, the education, and all of this has undergone a lot of metamorphosis, a lot of tremendous change in the last few decades, I would say. Not one decade, but maybe two and a half decades.
True.
There's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of change. And what do you see as a principal, as an educator, as a teacher? What is that one thing that has stood the sands of time, and it's just kind of, it has never been compromised or diminished? It's just stood very strong and robust. What is that
Yeah.
one thing?
So you're very right, Itu. We've seen a sea change in the way schools are run, in the pedagogy, in the content, in the kind of delivery of lessons. But I do this little exercise with every group of teachers that I meet with every year. I ask them to shut their eyes
Hmm.
and think about school or college, and think about that one teacher who they remember and who probably, as teachers, they want to emulate, or they became teachers because of that one teacher. And 99.2% times, it is when I ask them what was it about that teacher, they don't talk about content, they don't talk about diction, they don't talk about vocabulary, they don't talk about how beautiful she was. It was always that she gave us a lot of love. So
True.
that old world, old thought, that is something I feel is the most important quality in a teacher. Everything else will follow. If you love your child, if you love the children sitting in front of you, to listen to you, to believe in what you're saying, and then to do well, because after all, end of the day, in the pragmatic world, you have to do well. Then you have to love your child. And if you love your child, you will prepare your lesson well. If you love your child, you'll keep up with the latest pedagogical practices. If you love your child, You will go online and learn how to deliver an online lesson also, as has been happening in the past 2 3 months. So for me, the bedrock of a good teacher is love for the children. Everything else will follow later. But if the teacher does not love a child, she may be a gold medalist, she may be a university topper, she may come with huge references. I really don't think she can last out very long, at least in a school like mine, where the children know they have access to me. And children are very clever. They probably gauge a person much quicker than us. They don't say it very often, but if you I've given them that voice, that if you feel uncomfortable with the new teacher, please come and check, give her a chance, don't compare with somebody else. But if you still find there's something, niggling doubt in your mind, please walk up to me and tell me what it is that is missing. So I think, for me, despite all the changes that have come in technology and pedagogy and chapters and curriculum in new subjects, that one value of a teacher, that one attribute of a teacher remains unshaken. She has to love her children.
So the power of love, as
Power of love.
we talk in the Mojosh Inspirator and the life skills books that we are and the
Absolutely.
program that we're talking, and the power of love. So the power of love has this immense power to withstand and
Everything.
whatever
Yes.
with the children. Aditi ji, I'd like to move to the facet where you are a huge advocate of giving back. Giving back through your work, through your life, and as a giving back to the society. So you also, in your work and in your work as a principal and educator, you have always professed that the school infrastructure, the school teachers, staff, there is an immense potential to give back. And tell us about your projects other than, in the classroom, the school.
Yeah.
What are these projects that are helping you uh, leave an impact on the society, and also, help the children to emulate a lot of other values?
Right. So, Itu, I don't mind telling you that I went to a school where the motto was service before self. That was Delhi Public School. And coincidentally, after finishing my education, I went right there to teach again. So that motto became a mantra for us, for me. You have to serve. You cannot be selfish. So when you hear this mantra again and again, it has to be service before self. You have to serve people, serve your family, serve your community, serve your neighbor. It becomes a natural part of your thought process, and you want to give. So typically, what can you give? And one of my favorite writers is Khalil Gibran, where he writes, "You give but little when you give off your possessions." Giving a book here or giving a sari to somebody, nothing. It's when you give off yourself that you truly give. So, what can you give off yourself? I only have a few things. I have my time, I can give that. I have knowledge, I can give that. I have certain skill sets, I can share those. So for me, it became imperative that I find somebody who would listen to me and echo what I was saying. Because it's very, very rare in the world to find a coming together of two people who may think in the same way, the same wavelength. So I can only say I'm very blessed, beginning with the blessing of having a very supportive family, my parents and my husband, then to meet people who are patrons of my school, Mr. and Mrs. Jaipuria, who just loved the idea of the Shiksha Kendra. I mean, they didn't even question me once. There was no question how, what, where. They said, okay, educating the poor? Yes, go ahead. What will it entail? That came later. I said, I'll need teachers, I might need books, I might need uniforms. They said, just go ahead and do it. So, when you find somebody like that who is willing to sponsor your dream, it's a dream.
Yeah.
But if there's somebody who says, go ahead, I'm with you, it gives flight to your dream. Otherwise, if I had not got the support, I would have probably stopped at 20, 30, 40 children, because honestly, I can't afford to, provide for so many more. But the fact that these two people who set up DPS Sector 45 and then went on to say, you can educate as many as you want. And then it became such a passion for them that they used to ask me every year, are you increasing the numbers or not? Are we going to get more kids or not? Please remember, each time we say we take more kids, it means we take more teachers also. And the structure of the school is such, they wanted to have it as free education. That was something I told them. I said, take a token amount, because things which are free are rarely respected. So children may not come, they may take the admission and then stop coming. So just take a token amount. So actually a small token is given. I don't mind even telling you. From the girl child we take 50 rupees a month. From the boy child we take 100 rupees a month. And within that they get the bus, they get a uniform, they get books, they get notebooks, they get a midday fruit. They have these teachers, they have an outing once a month when it's normal time and it's good weather. We take them for picnics, we take them for movies. We try to give them the kind of education which they may not have otherwise got had they been left to their own devices. um, so that the idea, of course, came from DPS only, the idea of a Shiksha Kendra, but was supported very strongly by the patrons of the school, because it did mean a lot of expense, to be honest.
Right.
And that expense has been borne completely by the patrons. And then the other projects that came out as an offshoot of this, because the idea of the Shiksha Kendra is not just to impart education to the marginalized and then forget about it. For me, if this is going to be a revolutionary social movement, then everybody has to get involved. So again, I count that as a blessing, that whether it's the parents of the school, whether it's teachers of the school, whether it's senior children of the school, they have always supported the Shiksha Kendra like nothing else. I mean, they may want to escape if I tell them there's a house function, so please stay back. They may want to not stay back if I say that I'm doing an inter-school event, please aa jao bachcho. But they will come, but they might have some issues. But I say Shiksha Kendra, and I ask for 10 volunteers, I get 100. That speaks volumes. Um, Linked to that is what the even class 8 and 9 do with them. We make them take on 2 children each and start teaching them English, start teaching them recitation. So again, a very cute sight when you see a class 8 child sitting like this with her fingers crossed in the assembly area, and you say, "What happened? Why are you crossing your fingers?" Ma'am, my child is going to speak now. That's the child she has nurtured and mentored and got her ready for we've also started through these children cleaning up their villages. We've put dustbins over there. We've tried to teach them about segregation, so they do the cleanup of the village. And the sarpanches, when the sarpanches were there till about 5 years ago, they would write me very sweet mails saying कि मैम यहाँ तो सैलाब आ गया सफाई का. Now, safai ka sailab sounds very odd to me, but they said that the children hound us. You can't litter, you can't throw this here. गोबर है उसको एक तरफ रखिए, ये गैया एक ही तरफ रहेगी बिकॉज वहां पे फिर गंदी होती है, वहां पे बदबू आती है. इसको हम कैसे कंपोस्ट बना सकते हैं, छिलके सब्जी के छिलके कैसे अलग अलग करके we can make some kind of manure out of it. So all this education to this handful of children is actually reaching their villages, and they are becoming change makers for the village. And that is very heartwarming for people like me who want education to change people's mindsets. Education should not be just for the sake of education. Ki padh liya and I can sign my name, and the battle is won now. Battle has
Your
started.
school parents are also pitched in. Do they also come in?
Very often, very often. So this is again an anecdote I will tell you. Every year around July, August, we have new admissions coming in, because that's when people come back from their village. Katai ho gayi hai, fasal kat gayi hai. So we have admission tests, and then initial days we want them to have a good time. So I was called out to see their relay race, and I was looking at these children running, and my heart broke into a million pieces because I saw them wearing unmatching shoes. Somebody was wearing a patawa croc. So I couldn't start weeping in front of them. So I reached my room and I wept a little bit. And then next day there was a function of the morning school. And I just mentioned, I said, you're all very proud of the Shiksha Kendra and you all feel very happy. But yesterday I saw this Nazara and my heart broke. Um, and I don't know where to get the money from, because we don't have those kind of surpluses. So at the end of the function, 5 parents came to me. They said, "Ma'am, we want to sponsor the shows. Just tell us how many there are." So from the new admission lot, we had about 92 children without any shoes. So these 5 parents said, "Ki ma'am, hum karenge. Aap manga do jute." So when you get out to do something good, Ito, I find the whole world comes together. So
True.
सारी कायनात एक साथ हो जाती है. So one of the parents said, "I know somebody who has a shop in Old Gurgaon. He will bring the shoes here." So we did for these children what they could have never had, walking into a shoe shop which has reached their school and picking out their own set of shoes. When the shopkeeper saw them, his heart also broke. He says, I normally give 10% off, मैं आपको 25% दे रहा हूँ, मैम आपको जितने चाहिए ले लो जूते. Then I said, why only new admissions? पुराने बच्चों के भी देख लेती हूँ. So we finally bought shoes for about 400 plus children. And then my own parents, my school parents, my alumni, everybody got in. Okay, ma'am, whatever you need, just tell us. Whenever the bill is ready, just break it up into so many pieces and tell us.
So the ripple effect.
It is a ripple effect. And when you're doing something good and it is visible and tangible, everybody gets into it. There are no questions asked. Money is not coming to me. मैंने तो नहीं कहा जूता के लिए पैसा दे दो. ये रहा जूता, ये रहा बच्चा, उसको जूता पहना दो बस. That's all. That's all I asked for.
So do you think you've been able to break some molds of the, education, which is just thought to be of a certain kind, but this is the education that's really, really going to help the children, their parents, the society,
It's
and
helping.
that's the.
Well, actually, it's helping everybody. We sometimes have this mistaken notion that we are helping Shiksha Kendra. I think they are helping us. I think they are teaching my children a lot in the morning, because when those kids stay back, I make them stay back. There's a roster for class 9 and 10. They have to stay back and teach something on one day of the week in the entire year. Should they like it, then they ask for a second day or a third day or a fourth day. But essentially, one day they have to go there. And I've seen some of the boys, especially, come out shattered. And they are so emotional. They say, "Ma'am, you realize we are very bad people." I say, "Why are you bad, beta?" "No, ma'am, we take things for granted. These kids are so sweet. When they finished their sums, they came to me. They said, 'Bhaiya, aur kaam de do.'" So they are seeking calm. They're seeking knowledge, and we shirk it when our teacher is chasing us, and we are saying, "Acha, we'll do it aram se. Kal denge." The dog ate my homework wali kahani. All that is happening. So it's an eye opener for the somewhat privileged children, that this is an accident of birth, and those kids are like you in every way. They have their aspirations, they have their wishes, they don't have what you have. So reach out in whatever way you can, and give in whatever way you can. It does not have to be money, it does not have to be clothes, it can be just time. So I'll share with you also what's happening right now. Um, when the lockdown was started in middle of March, um, we went into panic mode, to be honest. So in 3 days, we had to train every teacher how to use Zoom, how to go on Microsoft Teams, how to use Google. And I had to teach myself also, because I can't expect people to learn if I don't learn. And I think I'm a bit of a techno dinosaur, because it took me a little time to understand. But we got it. In about 2 days, we had all got it. And on the second day, it struck me, I said, what about my Shiksha Kendra kids? How will they get education? So we called those parents in batches, and we downloaded Zoom on their phones. All was well till the lockdown happened. Classes were happening for them like they were happening for morning shift. Podcasts were being sent, assignments were being sent till the lockdown opened. Now the dhobi bhaiya has gone for dhobi ka kaam. The chai wala has gone for chai wala ka kaam. Now my bachcha is sitting at home without the device. How will they
Right.
study? So again, brain started working. I sent out an appeal that anybody has old tablets or old phones, just give those. Again, overwhelming response. A lot of people came and gave all of that. We fell short of 42. My patrons again stepped in. They said, please buy new tablets and give it to 42 children. They should not be bereft of education because device nahi hai. I then appealed to class 9, 10, 11, 12. I gave them the syllabus of NIOS. I said, इसमें से कोई भी chapter निकालो, इसको simplify करो. So they have made the most amazing podcasts. They've used music, they've used voice modulation, they've made those 10, 15-minute podcasts and followed it up with an assignment. And I'm telling you, although they made only one or two, but itne sundar bane hain that when you see it, you'll really think that a trained teacher would have made these podcasts and assignments. So that jazba of help, that jazba that let me give something, let me do something for somebody who does not have it all. I think that has been the most heartwarming, the most enriching for me, for the parents, and for this child himself or herself. And then what is more heartwarming? When my children start earning money and they come back and say, ma'am, Shiksha Kendra ke liye we want to contribute 5,100 rupees or 10,000 rupees, I think success has been reached. If even 10% of the children come back, a lot of children give up their caution money. Ma'am, put it in the Shiksha Kendra, let them get something out of it. So I think it's been a beautiful journey, and made beautiful by the fact that everybody joined it. It's not a lone warrior. I cannot be a lone crusader. Things don't happen in isolation. Things don't happen with individual effort.
So do you think it's very, very important to sensitize children to these facets of society and make them better human beings to be able to give? And it
I
should start at an early age?
It should start as soon as possible, in fact, because I think there is no bigger joy than in giving. It's not just a catchphrase, joy of giving. I've often told the children, when you get a gift, you feel beautiful, you feel very excited, you can't wait to tear it open and see what you've got. But try giving something away. The joy is double, actually.
Yeah.
So that sensitization must happen from a very young age. And we do it in very different ways. Like for the really small children, we can't get them to come and start teaching. They can't stay back after school. But we sensitize them by, even involving them a little bit of fundraising.
Hmm.
They know there's a shiksha kind. They know there are some children who study there who are not as privileged as them. So we don't use the word poor or rich or anything. We just say they are not as privileged as you. So you should do whatever you can to help them. And the parents of this junior kids somehow are much more passionate, and the Shiksha Kendra has run because I've been getting uniforms and books without any questions asked from the children who are moving to the next class. Because if I'm educating 1700 children, 17 into 3, if I get them 3 sets of uniforms, I won't be able to afford it. I don't have that kind of surplus. So it's the morning shift children who neatly wash their dresses, clean them, dry clean them, put them in packets with the size and give it to be used by the children of the Shiksha Kendra. And when we gave it also, incidentally, when the first time it was given out in the year 2003, I was a little worried that they shouldn't feel bad कि hand me down दे दिया या गंदा कपड़ा दे दिया या पुराना कपड़ा दे दिया. So I had a proper assembly because then we had barely 200 children. We had an assembly where I explained the concept of recycling. And I
Mm-hmm.
reminded them that way back when we were growing up, we didn't buy everything all the time. We got so many hand-me-downs. I come from a small town called Lucknow. So where there, when there's even a small event happening, there is a big deal of the dance and music. But if there were 6 of us cousins, we didn't get 6 lehengas. There was one lehenga. Whoever's dancing, wear it, dance, and give it away to the next person. And not because of poverty, because it's not the right thing to do. It's wasteful. Why should anything be wasted? And why can't the elder brother or sister who's studying in the morning shift, why can't that brother or sister give it to the younger child who's in the Shiksha Kendra? So it was accepted without any disrespect or anyone feeling small that I have been demeaned by being given old kapra. Because old kapra doesn't look like old kapra. It's neatly iron pressed. And likewise for books. All the books are given to them neatly. Notebooks we need to buy. And again, it's either the patrons who step in or teachers contribute money and get the notebooks, or we have parents coming and helping us. So it has been, like I said, a journey, a dream which everybody started believing in. Everybody started wanting to be part of it because it makes them feel that they're doing something good and it's tangibly visible in front of them. And perhaps that's the reason why it became successful.
Yeah, at this point, I'd like to tell everyone that you've been with us on the Rex Karambir journey for almost more than a decade.
Yeah.
And last year, your school, your teachers, your students, and your whole fraternity at DPS also got this Education Change Champion Awards for this
Yes.
reason, because there is this beautiful element of giving back to the society,
Yeah.
and that element is being taught through the work and the work at Shiksha Kendra and all the things that you're trying to imbibe with your children. So that's so wonderful. I'd like to come back to these difficult times for education, for students, for educators, for teachers, principals, the COVID 19 times. These are going to go down the history and in not so nice way. But tell me something, what has changed now as a learning for you? And what was your biggest learning in these COVID 19 times as a teacher, as a principal? And what were the challenges? Tell me all.
Okay. So my one biggest learning has been that the teachers are also unsung heroes, like the
Of course.
frontline workers, like our armed forces. No one claps for them, but they have taken to the new normal like fish to water. And I accepted in the beginning that it was a challenge. Not everybody was as tech savvy. but they've all worked hard. They've tried on each other, that you sit in my class, let me see if I can do screen sharing with you, let me see if I can give you an assignment to do right on the spot. They have all, and I'm not talking about DPS, I'm talking about every school across the globe, where the teachers have reinvented themselves just with that one mission, that they have to reach out to that child. That comes only out of love, not out of compulsion. When it comes out of compulsion, it will be a very wishy-washy effort. But when there is passion, when there is love, then you will get what you're getting now. And it has, another big learning has been that everything is possible. Had I ever thought that we'll be teaching for 4 months online? Had we ever thought that we could do inter-school events online? We've done that. We've had schools across Gurgaon doing inter-school events. Everybody's participated. And in fact, the cutest thing has been that whenever we had a PTA meeting, for example, we have one every quarter. These are the elected parent reps. So oftentimes it would be that somebody's traveling out or somebody suddenly has a board meeting, something has happened so they can't attend. But now whether it's staff meetings or PTA meetings, everybody's there because it's online. So you just shift your, schedule a little bit, and
Yes.
you're right there, because it's, so for me it has been that you have to seek answers and you will get them. If you give up, you've given up. You will not find any answer. But if you don't give up and if you try to find ways out, you will be able to find that way out. So for me, what has happened now, and for most educators, why only me? I have so many friends in the teaching fraternity, and each of them has spent sleepless nights wondering what to do. We have worked together. The kind of collaboration we've had now with so many schools, we've been sharing assignments, we've been sharing worksheets with each other. That you haven't got something, come on, take this, just get, let your kids go on and move on and do it. So that collaboration, that feeling that we are not islands, we are in this together, that has been my biggest learning. And the fact that teachers, children and parents have become uh, inextricably linked together. They were always part of the ecosystem, but I used to always think that when you think of the three main stakeholders, it's the parent, the teacher, and the child. And the one person who's always out of the school was the poor parent. So now the parent is inside the school because the school is inside the house.
Yeah.
And that bonding which has now developed between the teacher and the parent is brilliant. And I in fact said it jokingly once that maybe the future PTMs will be much kinder places, with the parent now realizing, what
Yeah.
hardship a teacher faces, because they're saying, "Hamare do nahi sambhal rahe. How do you handle 37, 38 in the
True.
classroom?"
True. True.
And then there are so many jokes going around that whether COVID vaccine is found by scientists or not, we don't know. But certainly a parent will find a vaccine because they want the kids to start going to school
Going out.
and getting into the normal mode as soon as possible.
True. True.
Having said that, we always tell the children, because the one change which I'm seeing which is not very good is that children are feeling a little hemmed in. The incidence of children getting into depression, or feeling stressed out, or feeling anxious, or feeling like they're giving it up has risen, definitely. Um, and that has mainly happened because as children, they don't know when this is going to end. As adults, we can rationalize a lot of things. A lot of things are not deadlines for us. It doesn't matter. If we didn't have the meeting today, we'll have it tomorrow, we'll have it next week. For the child whose admission is dependent on a result which is to come out now, I understand the anxiety. I understand when children who are so used to going out for a run or for football or to meet their boyfriend, girlfriend, now they can't meet them. Well, mummy, papa are always around. Now, how do you chat with them? School was a very nice area where, you know, I'm not one of those who's against children, being together. I run a co-ed school. I think it's very important for boys and girls to mingle and to be friends, and it's okay if they fall in love. So in this situation, it's become a very convoluted situation because the children are doing things which they're not used to doing. As adults, we adapt.
Yeah.
As adults, we accept more quickly. Of course, I must say that homes have also changed. I'm hearing very nice things about how both father and mother are doing the housework because maids are not allowed inside for reasons of safety. We are encouraging our children to also help in the house in whatever way possible. And I've got some amazing mails from parents that even my class 5 child wants to help because the principal has said you must help in some way. If nothing, make your own bed, collect your own toys and keep them away. Do something which is good, do something which is nice. But of course, not everything is so fairy tale like. There is also the increase in domestic violence. We are reading about that as well. We have cases of schools which are facing a huge crash crunch because parents are unable or have not paid the fees for whatever reason. So these are all things which are sort of clouding the academic landscape. But you've known me for a long time, Itu. I'm an incurable optimist. I cannot feel low about this. I always think this too shall pass. If good times don't last, even bad times
That
won't. We'll
won't last.
find a solution. Something will come out of it.
On this note, I very briefly, my last question before we call Jerry in is this. I wanted to touch upon this idea of mental health and mind health and adolescents' mental health. Today in the newspaper on the front page of Times of India is also a lot of things being talked about. Even adults, we all are facing some kind of a mental anxiety, depression, and all of that. And children are facing for the first time. For them, this is a very very different kind of a thing. And as a school, as teachers, as this, are you addressing this issue as
Yes,
well?
yes, yeah, yes, we are. In the sense, the first time I noticed, the word sehem, I felt the class was sehma hua. They were just very, very quiet because I go into classes in the morning when they're, I, I just chat with them for 5, 6 minutes just to, so they just seemed a little very extra quiet to me. So the first thing we did, of course, was that absolutely crazy video we made with all of us dancing, which went a little viral, and at
I
least it
saw
made the
that.
children smile. And
Yeah.
I got messages from entire senior school. We didn't know the teachers could dance so well. We didn't know that you also do housework. I said, who do you think is going to sweep my house when my maid is not coming? I have to sweep it myself. So that was the fun bit of it. But I recognize that sometimes this is only superficial. They may laugh, but they are actually feeling anxious. So we created teams. We have groups of teachers who will talk to them if they are feeling. Sometimes it's not depression, it's just feeling of anxiety. They
Yeah.
want to just talk. Sometimes talking helps. I'm a believer in conversations. When you have a conversation, it helps. You lighten yourself. And if the other person says, oh, this happened to me as well, you don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
So we've had our alumni coming in as well. A lot of children who have passed out, who are now also working from home and can take out an hour or two of their lunchtime or in the evening or early in the morning. They have volunteered to come and talk to either groups or individually. We have not insisted that you have to come individually or you have to come in a group, whatever they choose. So there have been children who go in twos, the children who go in groups of five, if they have a similar level of anxiety or if they are worried about a similar thing and they talk to somebody who's passed out 10 years ago and can now smile about it and say, relax, it's okay. Result मई में नहीं आया, जुलाई में आ जाएगा, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. The heavens won't open up. So coming from me, they'll say, "Acha, she's just here to placate us." Hearing it from a somewhat of a peer, a senior peer, makes a little more sense to them. So these little groups have been made so whoever a child is more comfortable with, they can talk to them. We also have a very strong peer education group in the school, which is composed of children of class 11 and 12. What they do is they go into classes and they sort of leave a little thought, like a little cat among the pigeons. Think about this. Think about this. We'll talk about it next week. So, little ideas which could be bothering them find expression because they can talk to their. The cardinal rule, of course, is that those didis and bhaiyas will not come and tell their parents or the teachers. So, their deepest fears, their deepest secrets come out at that time. Of course, the danger is that if there is something which has to be reported, then we have to tell them. It's a disclaimer. We will keep your secret, but if it has to be told, it will be told. उस वक्त ये नहीं कहना कि it was a breach of trust. This is not breach of trust
So everybody is working in tandem to bring out the best in everyone.
in whatever way possible, to just reach out to whoever we can in whatever way we can, because the alumni also feels very connected to the school. They are
True.
there for every function, every event, every carnival. We call them to interview children for posts. We call them to be part of ceremonies. They come as judges for inter-school events. So I think this in this time it has been a little more easy for me to involve them. Just come for half an hour and talk to these children. They're feeling a little stressed out. I have these three kids who want to be lawyers, but they're confused. So I call a child who's done law or who is a practicing lawyer. Baat kar lo beta. They'll just feel a little better coming from you, who is a practicing professional. So, the community has come together.
At this note, I'm going to invite Jerry to be participative and to give his insights into all the conversation and all the thoughts that you and I have shared right now. And Jerry, we're waiting for you to come on board.
Yes, here I am. So, namaste once again, Aditi ji. Brilliant
Namaste.
listening in to you, and thank you, Itu. So, I took one of the small things that you said in the very beginning, and that's a great insight actually, because I'm sure you thought about this now after so many years. I heard you say, I listened into you saying that you were 13 years old when your teacher said that to you.
Yeah.
But I want to check with you first. What are the insights you get about that statement? Khadi penna padega. It's
I
a
think
powerful statement.
it's a very powerful statement. I
Yeah.
think what he meant, if I think about it, was paisa nahi milega.
Okay.
I think that's what he meant. Teachers are not paid very well, so you
Right.
will not be wearing silks and all. तुम
Right.
खादी पहनोगी.
But at the same time, I think there's a deeper insight to this, because like I always say, and that's what I posted on my wall today when we said that we are going to have you on the session today, that this is not just a job,
It's
right?
a calling.
This is not a profession, this is not a vocation. I say this should be a passion, right?
It is, yeah.
Which means it is not just about money, it is not just about career. And yet you see many teachers also today who are career mules, right? Just like the corporate executives who are career mules,
Yeah.
you also see teachers who are career mules. They're career climbers,
Mm.
which I think somewhere kind of compromises the entire passion that you bring to the table as an educator. And I'm talking by general because I do a lot of work with teachers.
Mm.
And the insight I want to share with you about Khadi Penna Padega is I think it's much more loaded than just about being money. And I'm sharing my thoughts with you
Yeah,
because when
yeah,
I
sure.
heard this statement, I said whoever said this is a very wise man. May I know his name? Do you remember who the teacher was?
I'll tell you.
Okay. Khadi penna padega because a teacher has to lead by example, right? Khadi is not a bad product,
Not at all.
Oh,
right? And khadi is by no means a inferior product. it
Not at
comes
all.
it comes it's a fabric which is associated with a freedom struggle,
Absolutely.
which basically means that be ready to go through that struggle, be ready to go through that jihad.
Mm.
Jihad has
Yeah,
become
yeah,
holy war, but I
yeah.
think we need to reclaim these words, because jihad is not holy war. Jihad is the eternal struggle to
Mm.
stay on the path of righteousness and truth. And I think
Absolutely.
khadi symbolizes that righteousness and truth. And I
Mm.
think as an educator, you have a much bigger role and responsibility than even a parent,
Yeah.
because kids are more in school and they spend most of their conscious hours in school, when they are awake, when they are conscious, and they are much more attentive, right?
Mm.
And they're watching the teacher's every move. So
Absolutely.
if a teacher does not adhere to the principles of simplicity and austerity,
Mm.
then we are teaching the children something very wrong.
Yeah.
And I think austerity and simplicity has not been understood by the world, because we only start practicing austerity and simplicity when things go wrong,
Yeah.
when actually the way of life should have been
Should
simple and
have been.
austere,
Yes, yes.
right? But what are we teaching children, whether we are parents or we are teachers or educators or schools? We are teaching them showbiz, pomp and splendor.
Mm.
I posted about this guy called some Mittal, Subhash Mittal, or whatever his name is. He's an industrialist who I believe spent some 82 crores on his daughter's wedding and today has filed for bankruptcy. And I was like, Shor Sharaba Dikawa.
Mm.
If this is what education and parenting is teaching children, I think it's a concern. And I
So I
think,
think, can I share something with you? I think
yes,
what you said about my teacher saying about Khadi, because I know who he was and I know how he thought. He was talking about the money, but you've given a very beautiful insight, and I think that is going to stay with me longer. Last year, I got my son married,
right,
and I shared with the students who came and talked to me. There was no pomp, there was no
right,
show. We had a budget. We stuck to the budget. Uh, there were just 40 of us at the shadi. There was no
right,
pandemic that time.
Right.
But it was a conscious choice of my son and my daughter-in-law
Right.
that it should be something which is to be done in a certain way.
Right.
We fed the entire Shiksha Kendra. We gave them a huge treat on that day
Right.
because I think those children would have appreciated it much more than any other party that I would have given to any other person.
Right.
So, again, this is something by example I told them. So, I don't think this example they will forget.
Right.
And I
Absolutely.
think also the fact that most of the children on their birthday come and do something for Shiksha Kendra. It could be
Right.
as small as giving 100 color pencils, it could be as big as giving 50 shoes.
Right. Absolutely. So, and I think that that's the beautiful insight which comes from this statement, "Khadi pehenna padega," because a teacher has to, you cannot tell. Like I always say, telling and speaking does not work. You
No,
got to do. Actions speak louder than words, which means
absolutely.
that if children are watching principals, educators, teachers living this ostentatious, opulent lifestyles, and I'm not saying that one should be absolutely drab and gloom and doom also.
No, no.
I think you should know what the right balance is,
Yeah,
right? And another thing is that khadi, like I said, is the fabric of righteousness,
yeah,
which basically means that you as a teacher or an educator need to carry yourself with dignity. You cannot be undignified. And yet when I go
absolutely.
into forums, I see a lot of principals, educators behaving very undignified when they take those selfies with ministers. Even if the minister is corrupt, what is the message that you're sending the children? This I can see in school functions, right? So I think it's a very, very loaded statement, and I would love to unpack this even more. But I think in terms of just articulating it, that we have to be austere, we have to be simplistic, we have to stay righteous, and that is exactly what our real dharma or religion teaches us, which was called Sanatan
Absolutely.
Dharma, the path of righteousness and truth, which
Yeah.
today has been converted into Hinduism and Hindutva. And I somehow don't see any of these people following the path of righteousness and truth. The entire country runs on lies, right? So then what are we really teaching our children? That it's okay to be untruthful, that it's okay to be unrighteous, that
Mm.
it's okay because the truth doesn't work. So I think those basic grand principles is what khadi teaches us. And I think that's the reason that Mahatma Gandhi, who we have on all our currency notes but
Yeah.
don't really follow his teachings, is also the person who started using khadi as a symbolic fabric.
Yes.
That was one insight which I got from the entire conversation. The other thing you spoke about is Khalil Gibran. So which of Khalil Gibran's book has really touched you?
No,
Because I mean, I'm a
I've,
big fan of his, so that's why
I've
I'm
read
asking.
all of them,
Right.
and there are some things that just stay with you.
Right.
So, perhaps the Prophet
The
was the one
Prophet.
that, yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. The
that was the
Prophet is a
first one I
classic.
read. That's the
Absolutely, it's a
first one I
classic.
read, and I think that has stayed with me the longest. But whatever he writes, he makes you think. He
Right.
shakes you up from inside,
Absolutely. Very
and
simple, very simplistic writing.
very simple,
Yeah.
but extremely hard hitting. You
Extremely.
have to put down the book and then start thinking, "Oh my God, what have I just read?"
True.
That
It's
way.
very simple and compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is this in the Prophet is a chapter where he speaks about children. And I've
Yes.
unpacked it completely in the Karmakari Kid Power book that
Yes. Yes.
was launched a little before the pandemic. It's still not hit the stalls because most of the bookstores are still closed. And I don't think too many people have unpacked what he speaks about when he says,
Your
and
children are not your children.
your children are not your children, because whether as parents or as teachers, we always think that we will teach them something
No.
without realizing that they are the future,
Yes.
right? and
Absolutely.
and I think that that's where the entire medium of education has become a little vulgarized, because teachers fail to realize that they need not impose their thoughts onto their child, because
Yeah.
what they are teaching from a textbook is purely text. It's not creativity. It's
Mm.
not enabling children to enable their critical thinking and creative
Yeah.
skills. It's putting them in a book or a box.
Yeah.
While what a real teacher should do is what Socrates said: I cannot teach anyone anything. I can
Mm.
only make you think, which
Yeah.
means you provoke the child's thought process, you provoke the child's mind so
Hmm.
that they can think better and give you better insights about what that particular subject matter is really implying,
Yeah.
rather than impose your limited knowledge onto them. And what I see more and more, and that's why I call education the trap. I've written this as a part of my first self-help book. I call it the E3 trap. And the E3, the first E is education. Because most education that we get in schools and colleges is where we put children in a box. We're not opening the box for them, right? And I'm not speaking about you, I'm speaking about teaching in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you see that one line of Socrates, which he said years ago, centuries ago, I cannot teach anyone anything. It actually teaches you what guruism is.
Yeah.
That stay humble, don't think you know everything.
Yeah.
And that's what real enlightenment is. Enlightenment is not about saying I know everything because
Hmm.
I'm sad guru. No. Enlightenment is about saying I don't know anything because I am learning all the time and I can
Yeah.
learn from any of you because
Yeah.
you are not just my pupils. We are all mentors and mentees in different situations. That's what guru means. It comes from two,
Absolutely.
two Sanskrit words, gu, darkness, ru, light.
Light.
Help children or help people to see the light and
Yeah.
empower them rather than making them dependent on you, right?
Absolutely.
You make them independent.
I
If you
think this
make,
becomes even more true, Jerry. I don't know if you'll agree, in today's context where in the classroom, the
right,
teacher is no longer the repository of all knowledge.
absolutely,
I'm 100% sure the kid sitting in front possibly know more than her. And
absolutely,
I've gone hoarse for the past decade saying this, that please
absolutely,
remember they have reached corners of Google which you don't even know exist. So
absolutely.
they know more than you. Now what you need to do is keep the knowledge there and see how we're going to apply this. What do we do
Absolutely.
with this knowledge?
And yet you have a lot of time when teachers speak to children that your kids ask too many questions, they're spoiling the atmosphere of the
Discipline in the
classroom.
class.
And I find that very absurd because a teacher even says that, because
Yeah,
curiosity is the biggest trigger of learning, which we've
absolutely.
covered extensively in our Mojo Inspirator book, The Power of
Absolutely.
Curiosity. Because if no
Absolutely.
curiosity, you're not letting that creativity be sparked, and
Yeah.
you're not building that love of learning. And I think teachers need to understand this. So that was about the Give of Yourself and Khalil Gibran's, because I think Khalil Gibran is a very powerful poet and philosopher who is very simple and compelling. And I think you need to understand the deeper insight of what he's
Of what
actually
he's
saying,
saying. Yes.
because
It
I
is
think
very
that,
layered. It's
yeah,
very, very
because
layered.
yeah,
But
because that one line, your children are not your children, applies not just to parents, it also applies to teachers. Because like
teachers.
I always say, teachers are parents in school and parents are teachers at home,
Yeah.
which you beautifully articulated that, with the pandemic, what has happened is that suddenly parents are more active because they are realizing that they have to participate more because
Yeah.
in the
In the
process of
process.
teaching. And thank God for this entire work from home, because
Yeah.
the other big problem is a lot of parents don't have the time, or rather, let me reiterate that they don't have the time, they also don't make the time
Hmm.
to look into what's happening with their children,
In the child.
because they
Yeah.
think the school should do it all,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Because they are so busy earning money, working so late, paying all their EMIs on their fancy cars and fancy holidays, that they forget that the children are the real wealth. Which is
Absolutely.
why fundamental number 11 was added in the Fundamental Duties of India in 2002, which says that every parent guardian will take care and nurture her ward child till the age of 14. And at that time I never understood it, but then later on, when I started going to school as a parent, I
Hmm.
realized that the reason that was added because a lot of parents don't have time for their children. So
Yeah.
hopefully the pandemic will teach them a lesson. But that said, I think once the pandemic ends and once the entire the so-called I've never understood this new normal, because I never thought humanity was normal in the first place, right? But as and when we go back to our old times, I think people will get back into business as usual and forget their children again. So I
I
think
hope
that's
that won't happen. Jerry, like I said, I'm an incurable optimist. I cannot change the way I think. I think there is so much beauty that has come out of this coming together. I hope parents recognize this beauty and they tweak their work in such a way that this bond is not
right.
diluted again.
I also love to be an optimist, but I'm an optimist who goes out with an umbrella and a raincoat together, right? And the reason I say that is because you've already seen it, right?
Yeah.
You had a behavior of lockdown and everything. And I will forgive all the migrants for coming out, because those poor people were trying to reach home,
Yeah, yeah,
right? But I was very surprised when the elite educated of Bombay, the day the unlocking happened, were
yeah,
out at Marine Drive, including some of your stars from Bollywood, which we all
yeah,
follow,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that shows you that behavior, you know, comes back to business as usual the moment
No,
things get, yeah,
Jerry, between you and me, behavior is something I can't understand. Seen this very sweet video just yesterday night. Somebody sent of a very sensible parent who's saying that there are parents who say they don't have money for fees, but they're standing
right,
in lines for booze.
right,
I mean,
right,
so where are your
absolutely,
priorities? What's happening here? What are we doing? So those questions, and you're very right in one more thing, Jerry, that sometimes in schools we don't give children enough voice,
right,
and I'm really, really trying for that. Let me share an insight with you, and I hope it reaches people who are watching this. Whenever we reopen, I don't know when, and there are big level, high level meetings happening. I have given that task to my class 11 and 12 to tell me what should be there when the school opens and what should not be there. And I'm 100% sure I'm going to get a most beautiful, most articulate, and most sensible list from this 18-year-olds than I would get from any other document from some high level institution. They will
absolutely.
tell us what is required.
Right. Very nice. Excellent. And on a lighter note, I think the reason people were ready to spend more money on booze is because booze gives them a high. I just read this somewhere. And once
Mm.
you're high, then you feel you're highly educated,
Oh, yeah.
right? So
Good one.
it's like what P. Sainath said. He said that when people say that they're highly educated, is what they're basically trying to say is that they're very expensively educated. They went to an expensive school and a college, but the education could be far behind, right? Another friend of mine who's a professor at IIT Chennai is my school friend, Anil Prabhakar. He says, Jerry, Sainath is absolutely right. But I think most of us are just degreed, not educated. And I think that really holds true for a whole lot of people from India and even from the United States, because it's the same behavior that you see everywhere. People have forgotten all precaution, they've forgotten all about being safe and careful, and are out there on the beaches without masks and things like that. Anyway,
Absolutely.
so that's the other problem. So just to kind of sum up, I was telling you about the E3 E3 entrapment or the E3 trap. The first E, like I told you, is education. And I
Yeah.
think I've covered that, because what we think is as a great education is where we end up just studying and mugging from books, because rote learning just to get a high percentage is the way of life, without realizing that studying is not really learning. So I think we need to also teach children that, learn because you want to inherently absorb the knowledge which you can then act upon, because if you're not really absorbing the knowledge and acting on it, it's futile knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It's like whenever I ask in a classroom or a corporate gathering, how many of you know your fundamental rights? Most of them don't know. So
Yeah.
these are all people who studied civics in school, but they don't know their fundamental rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forget fundamental duties, most of them don't even know that they exist,
Mm.
right? The second trap is experience. We become victims as children who are experiencing the nature and nurture is imparted to us from our parents, from our teachers, and sometimes a lot of blind beliefs and limitations of our parents and teachers are passed on to us.
Yeah.
For example, if I'm a devout Catholic, I would like to make a child believe that Christianity is the best religion, right? Or that my Christian God is the best God. Hey, by doing that, you're imposing your blind beliefs on them. So
Yes.
I think you have to let children, you know, adopt what they want to adopt without enforcing your beliefs onto them, because our experiences sometimes trap them. So that's the
Mm.
second trap, they experience. So they're not just victims of their own experiences, but they're also
But of
victims of
yours.
of an
Yes.
of a whole lot of experiences of grown-ups that are imposed and passed on to them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
including those limitations that you can only be service class, you cannot be an entrepreneur, or you can
Mm.
only be an IIT or a engineer, you cannot be a creative artist. I think we need to avoid that.
Mm.
The third trap is entitlement. A lot of parents actually teach their children that education means luxury and lifestyle. I find that to be very poor parenting, because if you're not teaching your children adversity, if you're not teaching your children resilience, if you're not teaching your children how to cope in times of suffering, you
Mm.
fail them as a parent.
Yeah.
Luxury and lifestyle, you don't need to prepare anybody. We need to
Absolutely.
prepare them to for coping and for being resilient, which many
Absolutely.
parents and schools don't do. And the reason I call it entitlement is because you always make a child feel that they're entitled to more. They're
Yeah.
entitled to a good job, a good car, a
Hmm.
good career. Hey, you're not entitled to anything.
Hmm.
Earn your
Earn it.
place in the sun.
Yeah.
Never forget that there are many children out there who've not been able to go to school
Hmm.
just because they've not had the opportunity. They are much more talented than you, but they've not had
Yeah.
the opportunity. So don't feel
Hmm.
entitled. Earn
Yeah.
your place in the sun and be grateful for what you have. I think the other missing link is gratitude. We don't teach them to be grateful. That
Hmm.
I mean, don't always kind of desire for more because you
Hmm.
think you want more, and that's what all your goodie bags and birthday parties, etc. Does to children. That you always want more. The peer pressure is high. My
Hmm.
dad has this car. What does your dad have? How does it really matter?
Hmm.
So I think that these are things which have to be imparted as a school, because parents are surely not doing that, especially in the urban areas of India, whether it's
And
Gurgaon or
like you
Delhi.
said, Jerry, when teachers talk about these things, children understand more. It makes a
Abs-
little more sense to them, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
and then of course the teachers are teaching this, and I always heard teachers say this, that Cherry, we teach them values, but the parents are teaching them something else. But it's a continuous process, because all we can do is sow the seeds of the guiding principles in the children's mind and let them grow. So I
Yeah.
think that's what it is. And you had said about how with the pandemic we've changed. It reminds me of an old quote by Dr. Viktor Frankl from his book Man's Search for Meaning, which I think we should recommend as essential reading for all parents and children, because that will help them to understand coping and resilience and stay strong.
Hmm.
And in that book, he says that when you can no longer change a situation, you're challenged to change yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that's a great learning of the pandemic, that we've been challenged to change ourselves, and I hope we change for the better. So
Absolutely.
I'll conclude with that. Great insights, great having you with us. If there are any final closing thoughts from you, please share them with all of
I
us.
think, Jerry, it's always a pleasure to listen to you because I find what you say resonates with me. I've lived my life in a certain way. I have often been questioned about very strange things. That you're a principal of such a big school. Why don't you have a bigger car?
Right,
And I just started laughing. I just couldn't stop. It was a slightly hysterical laughter because I really found it actually very funny. I said, "Will it bring me to places more quickly? I'll
right,
probably be caught in a bigger jam." I said, "When will we stop thinking of position being reflected in your house or in your car and what you wear?
right. Very
Wear
true.
what you enjoy, live where you love, and
Right,
take the car which makes you comfortable."
right.
And that is the essential message for all the children, also for me, that look for the happiness and don't
Yeah,
search it when then it'll be elusive. Do things
absolutely,
which you enjoy. Happiness kahan
absolutely.
jayegi? It will have to come to you.
I actually see people's jaws drop when I'm in a talk in corporate India, and I actually tell them the story about how our eldest son once told me that we should buy an Audi, and I had to explain to him, what is it? Just a car, metal, plastic,
Mm. Yeah.
glass, rubber. And all those guys who own BMWs and Audis, I can see their jaws drop, because they're like, what is this guy talking about? How is he putting this car down so badly? But what they don't realize is that's exactly what it is. Takes you from
Yes.
point A to point B. Understand the
Absolutely.
functionality. And
Absolutely.
I don't think that defines you, or the title defines you. What
It
defines
shouldn't.
you are your deeds, is your karma, which I think people have failed to understand. And surprisingly, the same people, like you said, who are buying booze but cannot pay
School fee.
the fees of the teachers, or grumbling about that. I've been reading about this, whether it's New York or it's Gurgaon or Bombay. Car cleaners and house help who are being paid 600 rupees to clean cars, house help who was being paid 3,000 rupees, have not been paid their wages,
Mm.
and have been unceremoniously terminated immediately when the lockdown happened, because
Yeah.
they could not come into the housing complexes. What are we talking about?
It shows a
Right?
mindset, I think, Jerry. We have to address
Yeah.
mindsets.
So
You know?
that's what
Yeah.
that's the only thing that we can do. So thank you, pleasure having you with us. Itu, any closing thoughts from you, and then we shall wind up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi ji. I think teachers are crusaders and they're conduits. They're just conduits to kind of pass through a lot of changes that happen in children and all. And
Yeah.
I love that line that you said that, the schools have reached inside the homes and the homes have reached the school. And I think this whole connection of peeping into the lives of the teachers, and the teachers getting to know the parents a little more, and
Yeah.
then working in tandem together
Yes.
should go on. And the lockdown is teaching us few lessons that probably this generation that is going to school right now is going to write about, talk about, and learn a lot about. And we as teachers and parents have a lot of role to play there in their mind health, and in kind of molding them so beautifully in these times.
And
Thank
helping
you.
them to think right. This again what Jerry said. We've asked children to keep a gratitude jar, and let the
Right.
family once a week just put one thing that they're grateful for. And
Right.
after 2 weeks on a Sunday, just open up. There is so much to be grateful for,
So much to be
Absolutely.
and we take it for granted. And the moment
Absolutely
we
absolutely.
true.
take it for granted, the joy goes out.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I
true.
think we need to be very
there's so
grateful.
much to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
And
so
I'm
much.
grateful to
Okay.
both of you for calling me here and for
Thank
talking
you.
to me.
Namaste and Jai
Always a
Hind.
pleasure to
Yeah.
listen to Jerry.
It's
Jai
always.
Hind.
Thanks a lot, Aditi ji. Thank you,
Thank
Thank
you
you
you.
too.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Aditi
Thank you.
ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you.